Hey friends, I was looking through the reports again and I found yet another narrative from the day that Nick and Gypsy were arrested that gives even more detail on how it went down. So let's read it together. Okay, that says that this is Deputy Brian M. Scar. On 6/15/15 at approximately 02:30 hours, I was partnered with Deputy Zimmerman as District 9310 and Operating Squad 269 when Waukesha County Communications Center Area 4 Dispatch advised me of a pending well-being check or assist other agency call in the village of Big Bend. Per the information obtained, a homicide had occurred in or near Springfield, Missouri, and it was being requested that our agency make a check of the suspect's residence for the suspect himself, along with a female party who may or may not have been injured by the suspect. At this time, I spoke with a lieutenant over the phone who advised that he had units responding to the Southeast substation to begin the groundwork on our agency's response to the call. He requested that I obtain a RAM from the tactical vehicles and respond to the Southeast substation with Deputy Zimmerman, which I then did. Arriving at the Southeast substation, I did view a photograph of the suspect in this incident prior to being instructed by Lieutenant Ulm to deploy to the residence on the west side to begin observations of the house itself and report any observations back to him as incident command. I'm breaking in here to say, I guess it should have been obvious that they staked out the house before taking action, but that's just something that never really occurred to me before reading this. Okay, back to the narrative. Deputies and I then obtained protective ballistic equipment along with our squad's long weapons and responded to the south corner of the residence, taking up a position in the adjacent yard on the west side behind some hedges. From that position, I began to make observations of the suspect residence, which was located on Cherry Street in the village of Big Bend. In doing so, I noticed that there was a porch light which was illuminated, as well as what appeared to be a kitchen light in the lower level of the house. This position, which we took up, was at approximately 03:56 hours. While maintaining that position, I was able to continue to observe the house well into the daylight hours when at approximately 07:45 hours, the door to the residence opened and a female subject later identified by other deputies as Stephanie Goldhammer exited with a large brown dog and entered the backyard of the residence. Shortly after her exit, a male subject later identified as Charles Goldhammer exited the residence and began walking into the backyard. In observing Charles, I noticed that his haircut was identical to the photograph which I had observed of the suspect in this incident, and he walked with his head bowed, preventing me from being able to clearly observe his face. He continued to walk directly towards myself and Deputy Zimmerman. As I provided incident command with continual updates as to his clothing description as well as the proximity to the door to the house, once the subject was approximately 20 feet away from me, I believed at that point he was either about to or had already observed our presence, at which point I decided that based upon the information that the suspect was believed to be a homicide suspect, I would establish contact in order to attempt to prevent him from re-entering the residence. He turned and quickly began moving back to the door of the house, leading me to further believe that he had observed our presence, at which point I made my presence known, loudly calling out to him, Sheriff's Department, directing my squad's patrol rifle at him, and loudly instructed him to get on the ground. Charles continued towards the residence as Stephanie made a quick motion towards the door. Eventually, both parties did stop, face me, and place their hands in the air as I demanded. I instructed both subjects to lay on the ground in a prone position as the tactical unit members pulled into the driveway in the SWAT team van. They then began to exit the van and make their way up the driveway where they established contact with Stephanie and Charles, placing them in temporary restraint devices. Deputy Zimmerman and I then went forward and took custody of Stephanie and Charles and extracted them back to our previous perimeter location where they were instructed to have a seat on the ground. It should be noted that when the tactical unit members made contact with Charles, they determined that he was not the suspect in this incident and that the suspect was actually still inside the residence along with a 19-year-old female in an upstairs bedroom. I'm breaking in here real quick to say, friends, here is where I found out just in addition to what I'd already found out, just how incorrect I was in that last video. First off, whenever I read in the last report that they staged at the elementary school, like I told some of y'all in the comments, I was mostly homeschooled. And so we didn't really follow public school's schedule. So I don't think about summer break automatically whenever I saw that it was in June. So they definitely would have been on summer break. And then also in addition to that, we find out in this next paragraph that Nick's little brother was in the house. So the school was just a place for them to stage. It wasn't related to the little brother at all. That was completely my misassumption, friends. Okay, back to the narrative. After extracting Stephanie and Charles back to our perimeter position, Stephanie informed me that there was a 7-year-old child inside the residence. This information was apparently already known by the tactical unit members, as they broadcast that information as well over the radio simultaneous to her informing me of it. Shortly after, a small child, approximately 7 years of age, and was escorted to our location by Deputy Wallenhoff. Deputy Zimmerman and I then escorted Stephanie, Charles, and the child back to Mulberry Street, where Deputy Bustari and Lieutenant Ulm arrived with marked patrol units and took custody of them, extracting them from the scene. Deputy Zimmerman and I resumed our perimeter position until relieved by Deputy Grook and Deputy Buesler, who are both tactical unit members. Once relieved, we responded to the command post, where I was directed to complete this supplement and instructed to clear from the event. This concludes my involvement and knowledge in this event. I have nothing further to report. So I'm not sure it's really better for the child that, all this happened at his home rather than them showing up to his school, but it does at least limit some of the trauma of, officers coming in and staging there to just the one child and not all of them in the school. And I feel so sorry for that poor kid. So I'm sure he would have heard his parents being arrested. That's probably why he came outside. Nick and Gypsy probably heard too. I still can't get over the fact in the last report that we learned that flashbangs were used, and Gypsy apparently was so calm about this, she never mentioned it. She didn't act the least bit shaken up when in her interrogation or anything. Very, very weird, friends. Now, right after that, we have another supplemental narrative that I hadn't seen before. It says, Deputy Robert G. Dorn, Village of Big Bend, on Monday, 6/15/2015, at approximately 11:50 hours, I made contact with Lieutenant Beale and was advised that I was to take Gypsy Rose Blanchard to Waukesha Memorial Hospital for medical clearance. The transport CAD event was a number there. At approximately 1200 hours, I took Gypsy Rose from the soft interview room from Deputy Ballman and took her out to my squad to Waukesha Memorial Hospital for medical clearance, departing the Sheriff's Department at 12:02 hours. After Gypsy Rose was medically cleared, which was at approximately 14:20 hours, I took her back in squad 270 to the Sheriff's Department, departing the hospital at approximately 14:23 hours and arriving at the Sheriff's Department at approximately 14:27 hours. I returned Gypsy Rose to the soft interview room where I first picked her up from. I unhandcuffed her and placed her in that room at approximately 14:28 hours until I was relieved at approximately 15:15 hours by a second shift deputy. During this time, which was approximately 45 minutes, Gypsy Rose was in the interview room. She was unrestrained and laid down on the couch for nearly the complete 45 minutes I was with her. The medical paperwork from Waukesha Memorial Hospital, along with a prescription for her medication for blank, was turned over to the second shift deputy. I have no additional information. Now, anything that has medical information has been redacted in this particular FOIA, but I'm really curious because I'm pretty certain they would have done a blood test on Gypsy for substances at that time. Wouldn't that be normal, friends? Maybe a urine test too, considering what she was taken in for? It seems if those had come back with her having anything in her system, that would have been mentioned elsewhere in the case. And all I've ever heard is that her blood was clean. What do y'all know, friends? Let me know in the comments. Oops, I forgot to put the second report back up on the screen. Sorry about that, friends. Okay, there's another part of it I found interesting. He added another page here. It says, upon reviewing the original supplement that I did fail to indicate that when I transported Gypsy Rose to Waukesha Memorial Hospital, I would note she walked from the soft interview room to my squad. She also walked from my squad into Waukesha Memorial Hospital. She did not appear to have difficulty walking. At no time did she claim any pain to her feet or request a wheelchair during the transport. I did walk with her. She did not have leg irons on, but she was belly chained during my transport to the hospital and the return from the hospital. Again, she walked with no problems and did not require a wheelchair, nor did she ask for a wheelchair. I have no additional information at this time. It's interesting to me that sometimes we see Gypsy walking with a limp and struggling, and sometimes we don't. My suspicion is that she just has a hard time with long distances and starts developing the limp and wobble walk whenever she starts feeling pain. That's just my theory, friends, from observation. I am no kind of medical expert or any kind of expert whatsoever. So Let me know what y'all think in the comments if I'm right or I'm reaching there. I also find it interesting that they literally refer to her interview room as a soft interview room. I guess Nick's was hard. I mean, he had that hard chair and, was cuffed to it and everything, where she got a blanket and to lay down and a stuffed fish. Now, about that stuffed fish, I find it interesting. I have heard rumors before, but not seen it proved, that the officer who took her to the hospital bought the stuffed fish for her at the hospital gift shop. I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't see it in the narrative, but there's doesn't seem to be an explanation for it otherwise. The stuffed fish she was swimming around, playing with like a little child on the couch. What do y'all think, friends? Down here is the narrative of the person who monitored Nick, and they don't describe the interview room at all. It's just interview room number 2, right here, interview room number 2. The Gypsy's was a soft interview room. It says at 11:50 hours, he assisted a detective with taking Godejohn to the restroom for a bathroom break. At 12:30 hours, Godejohn asked if Gypsy was okay and stated that he has been worried about her for a while. This is all stuff we know from watching his interrogation. I just want to see if they describe anything extra, friends. Okay, they logged all of Nick's activity by timestamp, and I think it's interesting enough for us to just go through. So the way Nick kept asking the detectives if he was going to get a chance to hold Gypsy again, in my opinion, just really goes to show he did not understand who he was talking to. Just like he does not seem to process the fact that some people are in authority over him, and he doesn't get to just ask them a question or something like that whenever they're literally in the process of arresting him. Anyway, let's take a look, friends. Okay, 14:50, request to use the bathroom. 14:52, timer reset, room 2 light was flashing. 14:53, escort to bathroom. 14:56, return to interview room asking about Gypsy if she was back. 15:17, asking about being able to hold Gypsy one last time, not elaborating further. 15:31, asking what time it is. 15:38, asking about Gypsy. 16:04, told him Gypsy was here and medically cleared. Asked if Gypsy was going to be questioned. Gave him a magazine to read and look at. 17:08, asking for more magazines and how Gypsy is doing. 17:15, he stated he went to Missouri on June 9th to pick up Gypsy, who got kicked out of her mom's house on the 7th. Gave him another magazine to read. 17:38, asking if Gypsy is in handcuffs and getting special treatment. I found that part interesting because I don't think Nick asked that hoping she was getting special treatment. He doesn't ever like it whenever they're not treated the same. 1800, timer reset on recording room number 2. 1811, bathroom break. 1813, back in room 2. 1825, gave him new magazine and he asked for a blanket. 1845, gave him a blanket. 1856, asking about what time it is and Gypsy. 1902, gave him a new magazine. 1907, told him Gypsy was sleeping. 1935, Detective Cole asked Godejohn if he wanted any McDonald's. 1941, asking what time it is. I'm breaking in here to say I can only assume he told him no on the McDonald's because I don't see them talking about bringing him the food. And I'm sure that's because in Nick's mind, he's banned from McDonald's. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching. What do y'all think, friends? 1941, asking what time it is. 2015, told Godejohn Gypsy was eating and asked about him. 2024, Godejohn talking to himself. 2100, reset timer on recording room number 2, asking how Gypsy was doing. 2119, bathroom break, asking about Gypsy. 2130, told Nick Gypsy is doing fine. Detective Boosler return. 2151, asking what time it is. 2213, wondering when someone will be here to talk to him. At 2213, he's wondering that. I want to just scroll back real quick and see what time they started this log, how many hours we've gone through. Because that's 2213. It goes back to 1450. So he'd been there for almost 8 hours at this point. 2229, asking about Gypsy. 2240, asking about Gypsy. 2250, advise Godejohn detectives from Missouri are on scene and are going to talk to Gypsy first. 2259, told Godejohn detectives are talking to Gypsy and will talk to him next. Godejohn asked if he would be able to hold Gypsy. 2319, getting tired, wanted a soda. 2327, gave him a cup of soda. That's why I'm pretty positive he said no to the McDonald's because they would have log given it to him, I think. 2337, asked about Gypsy and the chance of holding her. 2345, Detective Ladwig left. 2353, asked what time it was and if there was any idea of how much longer. Godejohn stated, hope the outcome of tonight goes good. I don't see why it wouldn't. Oh, my God. 100 hours, timer reset, recording room 2. 11 minutes, Missouri detective entered interview room to speak with Godejohn. 2:17, Interview with Godejohn concluded. I have no further information to report regarding the monitoring of Godejohn at this time. So 12 hours. Now, Into the Weeds was finally able to locate someone who could help them get uncorrupted versions of the files that show the Walmart surveillance of Nick and Gypsy after the murder and the days after the murder. And here's something I found interesting, friends. Okay, pay attention to this cab. This is the one that they're arriving in. Okay, this is Nick down in the corner. The cab driver is out getting their luggage. You'll see Gypsy get out in just a minute. There's a Gyp. Almost looks like she crawled out of the back of the van, like she got in the back like she did with her mom or something. Probably not, but it just looks weird, friends. And why in the hell is she using a bright pink rolly wheel suitcase if she doesn't want to get recognized and wearing that crazy wig? Put on a ball cap and use a normal colored suitcase. She could steal anything in the world she wanted. And her and Dee Dee traveled all the time. I'm sure Dee Dee had much more normal looking luggage that she could have taken. Just something weird I observed. What do y'all think, friends? Am I right or am I reaching? Also, watch her walk. This looks like a phone booth or something back here behind this here, which I think it might be an ATM machine or, something or other like that. Because I later on in the video, you see a guy come to it and looks like he's doing an ATM transaction. But behind it here, it looks like maybe it's a phone booth or something that Gypsy could have sat down in. I don't know. But just to rewind a little bit, look at the clothes that she's wearing. Those were quite a bit darker than the clothes that she's arrested in. And this is what she was wearing when she was arrested. Now, to me, those pants look quite a bit lighter, but that could just be, sunlight, contrast, lighting, and all that stuff. But it really seems like she didn't keep the same clothes on all 5 days. She chose for a reason to put bloody clothes back on before giving herself to the police. That's just my opinion, what I'm observing here. I might be missing something, friends. But let me know what y'all think in the comments, and we will go out with a palate cleanser. Have a good day.